and they're going to deliver this information. I have no doubt that this is going to be very valuable information. But how is this person going to connect with the audience to deliver this information? If people aren't engaged with it and people aren't ready for it and excited about it, they're going to be arms crossed, leaning back, not necessarily ready to retain this information. So in aligning where the room was, which was a higher energy than where the speaker was when they're going to come out there, what I did was I went on the stage and I humanized the speaker because I knew they were going to give the information. So I humanized the speaker in the aspect of this person is a mom, just like you. They run around in the morning trying to make lunches and get their keys and find where those are and get the kids out of the door. I did all of these different pieces.
Your business's success depends on relationships. Relationships with customers, relationships with employees, and relationships with stakeholders. What do they all have in common? They're all human. Because no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, human to human. Welcome to the Human Connection Podcast. I'm your host, Karl Ponto. Each week I bring you stories, insights, and practical advice from experts that you can apply to your growing company and daily life. This week I'm excited to connect with Aaron Smalls. He is a TV and live event host, DJ, keynote speaker, and founder of Charismatic Advantage, a communication and leadership framework rooted in the art of social energy. He launched his hosting career with Nickelodeon and currently serves as the audience warm-up host for the Kelly Clarkson Show in New York City. Drawing from decades of experience on stage and behind the mic, he helps leaders and audiences harness the power of presence, communication, and social energy. Congrats on Charismatic Advantage and welcome to the Human Connection Podcast.
Hey, Karl, thank you so much for having me on. We chatted a little while back about the show, and I'm excited that it has finally arrived and we get to be here. And thank you to the audience for being here and listening and tuning in with us.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you on the show to talk about the art of social energy and why some people just own the room, because it seems like there's so many times and they almost like become memes where business executives or kind of CEOs get on stage and they come across as so robotic and kind of lacking humanity, and it really ends up hurting the brand or what they're trying to announce or talk about. And so for people that want to avoid that fate and be more charismatic and come across as more natural and just be more natural on stage or on screen, what are some of the ways you work with people to help them master that social energy that you talk about?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it really comes back to exactly what your podcast is about, right? You say H to H, which is human to human. And that's what I've spent 20 years proving. That scale is really about that human connection. And that is the thread to what Charismatic Advantage, the art of social energy is I started way back when with Nickelodeon as a host for those shows. And then I got into DJing, and then that got me into acting. So those three things were my tripod for the longest time. And with that, I thought to myself, what's the thread here? What am I doing with each one of these that makes me so good at them? And there was one thing that I found that was a thread and was similar through all of it. And that was energy. In all of those things, it's this energetic exchange between people. And that's so much of what we're doing in business whenever you're on a stage. And granted, a lot of people that are listening probably think of a stage and they think of that literal stage, that thrust platform, that elevated platform that you're standing on. But for me, I say a stage is anytime eyes are on you. It's that moment when you're giving a presentation, you're in a talk, you're giving a best man speech, a toast, a conversation like this one-on-one. Any of those moments are a stage when eyes are on you. And in business, it's no different than what I do on these different stages. And it is connecting, right? It's this energetic connection between people. And that's where we fight and battle against all those things that you've talked about in different episodes of your podcast, from churn and retention and culture. All of those different aspects play into what I do with Charismatic Advantage, the art of social energy, in an energetic aspect and in a public speaking and a communication aspect, and in business. We just do it in slightly different ways. Like, you measure churn and retention, I measure it in real time with, like I said, I'm doing the FIFA World Cup stuff in Boston right now. And so I do that exact same thing. I'm measuring churn and retention, but I'm doing it in real time with 65,000 people watching. And the room will always tell you where it is and how it feels. It's just up to people and leaders to be able to identify where that energy is and to be able to act on it.
Yeah, I think it's something you just mentioned that I picked up on, was kind of that reading the room, understanding the vibe of the audience and how they're feeling, and picking up on that and adjusting what you're talking about accordingly. And I think when you see some of these, like, people get on stage that are business leaders or executives, or they go up and it seems like it's like a one-way, they're just them communicating out, but they're not really understanding or caring about what the audience is feeling or how they're responding. And on a keynote stage, it can be definitely hard because it's such a lot of people and hard to read. But if I can see, like, in all hands, or like if you're talking with a immediate team, it's really, even though you're on stage, it's still a two-way conversation. There's a back and forth there, and being able to read the room and understand how something's landing or what's not, or what isn't working, is really important. And I think a lot of people that get on stage aren't in that mindset, don't realize that's what's going on, and so they end up communicating poorly. And especially if it's the energy they're putting out to their audience, whether it's like their team members or a crowd, is pushing people away. You can probably see it on when there's a huge part of the crowd kind of breaks off and leaves. That's an easy, like, sign. But in a business sense, there's not going to be as immediately visual cues of people walking out of a room, but it might be more the body language change and stuff. So how do you help people? What are some tips you have for people of, like, understanding what's going on between an audience and someone on stage that helps them pick up on those cues easily?
Yeah, so a lot of that is what I have created these frameworks to do. One of those frameworks is called Alive, and I pretty much break down the different steps of what goes into that system so that you can identify the energy in the room. So much of the time, people will come up, they'll come onto the stage and they'll have their notes with them. They'll set their notes down on the podium, or they'll have the prompter there in front of them. They'll put it down and they'll say, "Hi, I'm Karl Ponto," just like they said, "and I'm very excited to be here." And the whole time they're looking down at their notes. You know exactly what you're going to say. You're going to reintroduce yourself. You're going to say you're excited to be there. And people come out and they immediately are looking down, which crashes that energy, right? Versus coming out, you know, that first line, taking a beat to look at the audience that's there, and then saying your line. Everyone, just like they said, I'm Karl Ponto, and I'm so excited to be here with you today. Then you can jump down to those lines. So some of the frameworks that I've created for people based on what I do are exactly that. There's an entire opening system that I've created on how you can come out in any different scenario and land your opening. How you can come out if things go sideways, where you think that they're going to go according to this plan and they go sideways. And I'm an acronym junkie, so that's another system that I have, which is called SAVE. It's how you save the situation when it does go sideways, right? Because so much of it is not about planning, it's about this preparation. How you prepared for this speech, for this conversation, for this time when you're on the stage. So if I'm talking about SAVE, it's this situation of being able to scan, adapt, validate, and then execute live in real time so that the crowd never felt the actual crisis or what went sideways in the situation. You're still in charge, you're still leading, you're still guiding people through. And so much of this can be done before you say any words, right? People feel you and they feel your energy before you say anything and before they understand you. And that's exactly what I was just talking about there in the beginning. If you come out and your face is down in your notes, people aren't connecting with you. You're not connecting with people, and that energy dissipates. And now you're working to pull them back into you, to listen to you, versus starting on this higher level where you're already kind of connected and that energy is ping-ponging back and forth, right?
So I really like that you have a whole system for mitigating kind of the crises that can happen when someone's on stage and something goes sideways. Do you have any stories you can share of times where you're on stage and you use this to help like save something that's going on, or like you've worked with someone who's implemented this stuff and the impact it's had on their speaking? Because I imagine there's some amazing stories behind the implementation of these frameworks that can give people some better context of how they actually add value to someone speaking.
Absolutely. I have a couple quick stories that I'll give to you here. One of those stories is I was on stage. I'm hosting this event. There are a number of different speakers that are getting up on the stage for this event. Backstage, I like to speak. I like to talk with the speakers just to get a feel for their energy, their vibe, what they're going to be doing. Once again, this is part of my energetic system of being able to align where the room is, where the speaker is, what the brand is, what we're selling, what the story is. Being able to align with that is a huge skill of leaders and being able to do that. So I'm backstage and I'm talking with this speaker and I'm just asking her a few questions about herself. And she goes, "Didn't they give you my bio?" And she holds up her bio, which is multiple pages in this bio. And I said, yeah, they gave me the bio. I'm checking in with you because I like to get a feel of the speaker and where you are and what you'll be talking about, not just from the pages, but from you. And she's like, "Well, they gave you my bio." And a lot of what she was doing was very robotic. She was really sticking to those words and the script and the plan, and this is what it is. And so what I thought to myself was, okay, this person's going to come out on the stage and they're going to deliver this information. I have no doubt that this can be very valuable information, but how is this person going to connect with the audience to deliver this information? If people aren't engaged with it and people aren't ready for it and excited about it, they're going to be arms crossed, leaning back, not necessarily ready to retain this information. So in aligning where the room was, which was a higher energy than where the speaker was when they're going to come out there, what I did was I went on the stage and I humanized the speaker because I knew they were going to give the information. So I humanized the speaker in the aspect of, this person is a mom, just like you. They run around in the morning trying to make lunches and get their keys and find where those are and get the kids out of the door. I did all of these different pieces that humanized this person to the audience. And then I connected the humanization of it with the information they were going to deliver. And that created the excitement for the people. Man, this person is just like me. They're a parent, they're a mom, they're a business owner, just like me. And they're going to give all this great information. Let me lean into this and really listen. So I used a lot of the energetic skills that I teach and I coach to really align the room with where this speaker was. There was another instance, I'm not sure when this episode will air, but Travis Kelce and Taylor just got married, and there was an event a while ago that I was doing that Travis was supposed to be the main guy that was there. So people are waiting in this line from 7 a.m. The event doesn't start until 10 a.m. and they're waiting to come in to see Travis, and I'm hosting this event. And as time ticks on, I'm feeling the energy in the room. I'm hearing what people are saying and whispering. I'm looking at the coordinators of the event, and I'm realizing Travis isn't going to show up. He's not going to be here. So how do I make this pivot from the plan to make sure that these hundreds of people that are there to see him don't miss a beat? They may be disappointed, but how do we switch it so that it continues to go on smoothly. And as a leader, that's what we have to do. It's about these transitions. It's about the change. And how do we make that adaptation with our shareholders and our customers and our colleagues and our employees? Is how do we make these changes and transitions really land with them so that they're not terrified, so that they're not freaking out about the change? And so much of that is in the energetic way that we do that. It's about that exchange between people. It's about creating a culture and a sense of belonging and making people feel that. And so those are just some of the instances and some of the stories where the skills that I've taught people, and I've introduced this charisma into their lives to really help with these different moments.
Yeah, I can see how the trying to break that news to all the people waiting to see Travis Kelce would require a softer touch and a more charismatic approach to redirect the disappointment, or kind of avoid it just being a complete bomb and turning into something that's still a positive experience if it wasn't what people expected. And then on this other story, I think was amazing too, where because you got a sense for who the speaker was when you had to prime the audience to set their expectations and build some of that familiarity that you got the sense she wasn't going to be presenting about, because her approach was very much like stick to the script, give the information, and wasn't going to be spending as much time humanizing herself into the audience. So I think that for leaders, especially with how much change is going on, that both those examples are really powerful, because if you're facilitating a presentation for someone who is more data oriented, or that's and something like that speaker, where you need to help them humanize themselves as an event organizer, as their like assistant or whatever, to help them connect more with their audiences, that's a big takeaway. And also the navigating changes that people aren't super happy about is almost happening on like a weekly basis for a lot of companies. And so having the ability to communicate that and bring those changes about in a way that respects your team and helps them feel like they belong, that they're part of this, and they're not having all these questions, or like not assuming things because you're not communicating with them, which is what some of the companies are doing poorly, is this like the communication side of things, and that handling these transitions. I can see those being two amazing takeaways for anyone in a leadership role these days. That's amazing.
And you nailed it there right in the beginning with the redirection, right? You're redirecting the energy and the focus, and how are you doing that? And you really have to be able to tap in and have that vision and be aligned with where the company is. So many of these different aspects, that's a part of that aligned system that I was talking about, is aligning, listening, inviting, verifying what people are feeling and where we're going, and then elevating it to the next level. And with that redirection, I throw a question to you, because I think this is some 150 plus episodes that you've done and had in these conversations about connection and about H to H. So what's a pattern that you're kind of seeing that's showing up frequently in these conversations?
So I'm finding that one of the themes is that people aren't communicating in the ways that you're coaching them to. They're missing out on a lot of the change management issues, or like adoption issues that companies have had with AI, can be chalked up to poor communication and people not understanding or appreciating the people involved in their teams. And so the sort of solutions would be not to just try and barrel ahead and give people to tell people that need to get on board or get out of the way, but to actually be communicating in the way you've been laying out for them with these frameworks would make a lot of the AI adoption efforts more successful, because people would be understanding how they fit into it, and how it's not actually as a big of a threat as they are fearing, or how they could be benefiting from it. And it's because there's a lot more like successful AI initiatives in other countries than has in the US, because of how poorly I think the companies in the US have been communicating it. And so it's I think one of the themes I've seen is that more companies need to work on their communication skills.
Yeah. I mean, communication it's not easy. It is very much, it's energy, right? It's the sound energy that's going back and forth between two people. And it's not one-sided. There is a send. I'm sending you sounds and signals, and you have to receive those and send back that you received the same thing that I'm sending to you. And that is where things get so challenging, is when you're running a company, when you're running a business, not everyone is the same. You've got different cultures, different perspectives, different ages, different experience levels. And it's challenging to really be able to communicate with everyone. And that's why I think energy is very different than having these skills of what to say and how to say it. Karl, have you heard of positive relational energy? Are you familiar with that?
Nope.
Okay, so they've been doing a lot of I'm so excited about it because they've been doing more research on it, and it really ties into a lot of what I've done through my whole career and what I'm really being able to put into words over the last few years. And essentially, at the University of Michigan, they started doing this research on something called positive relational energy. And it's this big driver of performance and innovation and engagement. And what's really cool about it is if you put it in like biology and science kind of terms, it's called heliotropism. And heliotropism is when you see that plant or that flower, that tree growing towards the sun. It's a very similar concept where every living thing is moving towards that light. They're moving towards that energy. And that's exactly what I've spent 20 years engineering, is that charismatic advantage system. And that's what leaders really need to develop. If you can develop this energy about yourself, about this culture, this vision, if you can create this bubble, this sunlight that everyone wants to gravitate towards, they're going to want to work for you. They're going to be excited about coming into work. They're going to be excited about talking about the products. Apple is great because people that work at Apple love the products. They love talking about the products. They love having that insider scoop when new products are going to come out, and they're going to be able to talk about it. And if leaders are putting people first, and it's this human to human connection, that's exactly what's going to happen, right? People are going to be so excited. They're going to be so excited to talk about the business. They're going to be so excited to work with you. It's the whole reason why people used to fly across oceans just to shake hands to sign a deal, because it's that human connection that really makes that. And just like you said, it's not just this communication element that's missing with leaders and with their stakeholders and shareholders and their colleagues and employees and whatnot. It's the energy exchange and understanding how that energy plays out in creating this alignment.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for connecting with me today, Aaron. If you enjoyed this episode of the Human Connection Podcast, please leave a comment, and subscribe. If you want to connect with myself or Aaron, check out the links in the show notes. And remember, no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, human to human. Happy connecting.